So with the peak of the pandemic hopefully behind us, many in the travel industry are asking, when will business travel return? Well, according to several new reports, it's not going to, at least not in the way that we once knew it. Now, companies are saying they are dealing with higher travel costs and tighter budgets. They're also facing pressure to meet climate goals, and more face-to-face meetings are now taking place and being done virtually. Now, according to a new report by Morning Consult, business travel trips in the United States last year barely increased at all, about 1%. They say the longer that this goes on, the more likely that this is going to become the new way of doing business. Now, the report is also quick to point out that business travelers themselves have changed. They said the stereotype of the high-flying, big-spending business traveler just doesn't really match reality anymore. They're saying more likely right now, the average person taking a business trip is younger than in the past, flies economy, and makes less than $50,000 a year. Now, with fewer trips, you might think, well, companies must be saving a bundle on what they used to spend on corporate travel. But according to Deloitte, that's not necessarily the case. A new report by Deloitte says that business travel expenses doubled in the United States and Europe last year. But it's not really a recovery of sorts. It's more just reflective of how expensive it's become to travel these days. Now, if we can pull up a graphic again, I can show you where companies say that they are spending the most. They say first, it is the higher travel cost. That's the flights and hotels, things like that. Also flexible bookings. Now, this was a sort of nice to have before the pandemic, but now people need that reassurance they can cancel. And also, companies say they're managing employee expectations for taking luxurious business trips. Now, this is likely a carryover from before the pandemic when it just didn't cost as much to stay in a five-star hotel. Now, with costs up, employees are saying that their companies are really scrutinizing trips more. They say they're getting approved to take fewer trips, and when they do travel, companies are looking more at the bottom line, looking to see how much is being spent on hotels, even food and entertainment. Now, as far as what type of travel is on the chopping block first, well, Morning Consult says that's likely company retreats, trade shows, and incentive travel. But Deloitte says that trips that have a more direct link to making money for the company, these are things like sales meetings and client relationship building, these are probably a much safer bet going forward.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. So, Monica, you've been talking about the situation in the U.S., also in Europe. What about business travel out here in Asia?
Yes, so those reports, they are coming out of both of those locations. And I think that's because last year, Asia just really wasn't ready for that, right? We had too many parts of it that weren't open yet, namely North Asia. Of course, China wasn't open at all last year. I do think we're going to be seeing more data coming out on Asia on this topic soon. But I do have a little bit of data on Asia. Morning Consult also did another study last year where they asked business travelers all around the world, when do you expect to take your next business trip? Now, if I can pull up this graphic, I can show you Europe is hit the hardest, namely France and the United Kingdom. But after that, look here at the top of here. We've got India and China leading the way, showing a lot more resiliency. Now, of course, the region has a long-standing tradition of needing or really using face-to-face contact to build relationships, and that may very well buoy business travel in the region more so than other parts of the world. But look here in the middle. I want to point out this outlier, Japan. Now, the full list, which is on CNBC, has a lot more countries, and you can check that out. But Japan, right here in the middle, 48%. That's about half of business travelers who say they don't intend to take another work trip. And as high as that number feels, it's not unlike what we saw coming out from Japan for leisure travelers. You know, Martin, I was here just a few months ago talking about 1 in 3 leisure travelers in Japan said, look, they're sort of over it. They don't really want to travel anymore. So something is definitely happening in Japan that is different than, say, Southeast Asia or places like India.